Hi, and welcome to the Word of the Week. This week's word is acknowledge. Now, wrapping up our 2-month-long discussion on how to bring your A game, we're going to end with this word. And this is kind of a crucial thing because, when you're trying to develop yourself to get to a higher level, a place where a lot of us really miss the boat is we fail to acknowledge our accomplishments. And this is something that I deal with on a day-to-day basis as a martial arts instructor. So here at the school, we have a lot of people who get very frustrated with their progress because they don't see the development that they've made. And a lot of times, it's not so much that they don't see it, it's just that they're not where they exactly wanted to be at this point, but they don't acknowledge the fact that they have come so far in their training and in their development. So our ability to play at a high level requires us to keep our head in the game. You're not always going to be on top of the game. You're not always going to be winning. But you have to acknowledge the position that you're in. You have to accept and understand that you have done a lot of work up to this point. Now there's still more work to do, but you have to give yourself credit for what you've done and then give yourself motivation to do what still needs to be done. We have to acknowledge our own achievements. We have to acknowledge the achievements of others. In a team situation, it's important that you give credit or acknowledge or accept the positions that each of the players on your team have. If you're on a basketball team, for example, you may have to acknowledge the fact that you're not the greatest ball handler, so you need to make sure that the ball in those critical situations gets into the hands of the person that's best suited for that role. You may not be a great defender, so you want to acknowledge that maybe you need to back off of the other team's best player and let somebody else come in and take over. And the same thing goes on in work environments and in family situations. We each have our unique strengths and weaknesses. We have to acknowledge what we're good at, but we also have to acknowledge what we're not good at and identify and acknowledge the things that others have strengths in. And for a team to be successful, it's very important that you have the right people in the right position. So the ability to accept and to acknowledge, to make known that you have your unique gifts, others have unique gifts, and that when we come together in a synergistic way, we can accomplish a lot of greatness. You have to acknowledge the situation. You have to know what's going on, and you have to understand it, and you have to accept it for what it is, so that then you can deal with it. So as we're playing this game of life, it's so important that we acknowledge what we've done, how far we've come, what our gifts and our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, where we've lost our way. We have to acknowledge the strengths and the abilities of others and accept that. And like we've talked about a few weeks ago, we have to get some assistance. We have to give assistance. We have to get assistance. We acknowledge our situation. Sometimes that means that we have to acknowledge that the situation is much more serious than we originally wanted to pretend it was. And for a lot of us, it's actually the opposite. We need to acknowledge that maybe the situations we're in are really not that bad in the broader perspective. So acknowledge the truth of your situation. And then we can bring all of our skills to the table, and we can elevate our game, and we can be the success in life that we want to be. All right, I hope that you enjoyed this week's lesson. Hope to see you next week.